And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to give just a quick little recap of some of these games that went down yesterday. I already talked about the Lakers games, but there were a lot of games that went down yesterday because on Friday is the start of the All-Star games. And, well, not the All-Star games, but rather the celebrity games, I should say. And with that in mind, we need to be mindful of some of these games and how these are the last games that a lot of these teams are going to play going into the All-Star break. So let's get started with the first game. I have the box scores pulled up on my phone right here. The first game that was on the list is the New York Knicks matching up against the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic end up beating the Knicks 118-100. So it was a blowout. Obviously, the Knicks are missing their star players in OG Anunoby and Julius Randle. Jalen Brunson ended the game with 33 points. Precious ended the game with 23 points and 14 rebounds, playing 43 minutes. And Alec Burks ended the game with 13 points. Josh Hart only had 4 points this game, however, and that was really the only production that they were missing. A really weak rotation coming in from the Knicks, given how they only subbed in 4 players, but I guess they just wanted to make sure that everybody was well rested going into All-Star break. The Knicks shouldn't worry about anything. They're totally fine. The Orlando Magic are a decent team, so it's not like they're losing to a really bad team or getting blown out by a really bad team, which then they might have to worry about. Paolo Banchero ended the game with 36 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds, so obviously he's trying to show everybody that he deserves to be an all-star. And, I mean, he's a really good basketball player. I'm not saying that he's not, but I personally would have preferred Scotty Barnes just because he has the ability to accumulate more overall stats as well as playing better defense. Now, Franz Wagner also ended the game with 21 points, and that was really the only bright side of the offense for the Orlando Magic. And that was really the only offense that they needed because they both were able to outduel Precious and Jalen Brunson in terms of scoring. And the rest of the Knicks offense didn't necessarily show up. Miles McBride, he only shot 2 of 11. Alec Burks shot 5 of 16, and he only had 13 points. So I say this every single time. When you end the game with more shot attempts than you do points, you're not doing your team any justice. And on top of that, Josh Hart also wasn't efficient. He was 2 of 8 from the field this game and only had 4 points. So the Knicks just, obviously, they need to get their rotations down, but no time to panic. And now let's go over the other New York team. The Nets lost. Next game. Anyways, the Brooklyn Nets only scored 86 points. And the Boston Celtics scored 136. All right. Obviously, there is a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on in this game. The Brooklyn Nets only shot 38% from the field and 32% from 3. Mikal Bridges only shot 4 of 12. The only player that decided to come here and play basketball was Trendon Watford with 15 points. Keon Johnson, 9 points, 2 for 5. Dennis Smith Jr., 7 points, 3 for 7. Nick Claxton, 3 of 6, 6 points. Cam Thomas, 1 of 9, 5 points. Cameron Johnson, 1 for 5, 4 points. Dennis Schroeder, who we recently acquired in a trade, 2 of 8, 4 points. Obviously, the Nets are a terrible basketball team, and you might notice I did not say Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons decided to not play this game. Isn't that just fantastic? Now, obviously, the Boston Celtics just completely own the Brooklyn Nets every single year. Jason Tatum ended this game with 20 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. Derek White ended the game with 27 points. Kristaps Porzingis made an appearance with 15 points as well. And coming off of the bench, Peyton Pritchard had 28 points. This game was never close, and it was never going to be close. The Nets are a terrible organization. They stink at making a team. The first quarter, the score was 30-15 in favor of Boston. And then in the second quarter, they got outscored 38-17. So, how on earth does that happen? That is some really bad basketball from the Brooklyn Nets, and it's very disappointing. So, but with that game out of the way, we can talk about another game that recently went down. The San Antonio Spurs, they lost in a blowout to the Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie Irving ended the game with 34 points, 7 assists, and 9 rebounds. Luka Doncic ended the game with 27 points, 8 assists, and 9 rebounds. And Daniel Gafford ended the game with 10 points and 10 rebounds. So obviously, Daniel Gafford has been a great addition for the Dallas Mavericks for after the trade. And Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, they've been the best offensive players that they could be. Victor Wembanyama, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks. Again, obviously, clear-cut, in my personal opinion, he is the Rookie of the Year. There is no argument for him being anything less than Rookie of the Year. And no other player can argue that they deserve Rookie of the Year over someone like Victor. It just can't be argued, plain and simple. Really nothing much to say about this game. The Dallas Mavericks, they took care of business. We know the Dallas Mavericks are going to be a playoff team. And we know the Spurs, they just aren't doing much with Victor Wembanyama. They really need to rebuild and get a lot of the players off of their team. A lot of the players that don't want to be involved with Victor Wembanyama. Maybe get Victor a better guard to be able to run pick and rolls with. That would definitely be helpful. But other than that, not really much to say. Now, I mentioned previously how Golden State Warriors lost the previous game. They played against the Clippers, so might as well go right ahead and talk about that game. Stephen Curry ended the game with 41 points, and he lost. He shot the ball 31 times. A lot of times, yeah, but obviously it doesn't matter because he had 41 points. So, 41 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds were his final box scores. Draymond Green ended with 9 points and 10 rebounds. Jonathan Kuminga, only 13 points this game. He definitely needs to up the scoring a little bit. If he would have scored a little bit more, the Golden State Warriors would have won this game. 6 assists, 8 rebounds for Jonathan Kuminga as well. Klay Thompson, only 12 points. 4 of 14. Klay Thompson, 4 of 14. That is definitely that is not enough offensive production for somebody that is supposed to be the second option and the second best shooter on the team. That is not enough production. 1 of 9 from 3 as well. That is really bad. So, definitely needs to find some improvement there. Draymond Green as well, 4 of 12. I mean, he's not really popular for being an offensive juggernaut, but I mean, you should at least be efficient if you're going to take that many shots, Draymond. And Brandon Podziemski. Forgive me if I botched that name. He ended the game with 25 points on 9 for 12, 5 of 5 from 3. That's what a role player should be doing. Efficient numbers on efficient shots and just enough shots. Jonathan Kuminga, he definitely needs to score more points. The Clippers, James Harden had 26 points, 7 assists, and 8 rebounds. Paul George ended the game with 24 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. Ivica Zubac ended the game with a double-double, 13 points and 10 rebounds. And there was no Kawhi Leonard in this game, and the Clippers were still able to win. So definitely shows just how good this team really is. They had Amar Coffey in the starting lineup, and he ended the game with 14 points and 6 rebounds. So great game coming in from Amir Coffey. Russell Westbrook, 15 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Norman Powell, 21 points and 2 rebounds. So great overall win for the Los Angeles Clippers against the Golden State Warriors, who were just rolling in a bunch of these games. Obviously, the Clippers are the favorite to winning it all this year. And as you guys might know, if you pay attention to my podcast, that I say this every single time, I have to see this in the postseason. It's that simple. And I've seen it so many times when the Clippers, they look like they can take the team far. They look like they can win several series in the postseason, and they just blow it when it matters most. I've seen it countless times. Therefore, I need to see it in the playoffs. I'm not going to over-speculate anything for this Clippers team, simply because of the history going on around that team and blowing leads. I don't want to talk about it. And I feel like if I just continue to hype them up, the hype is just going to be for nothing. So, on to the next game. The Charlotte Hornets, they beat the Atlanta Hawks 122-99, so another blowout game for the Hornets. Trae Young only had 12 points with 12 assists. He shot 4 of 12 from the field, so not very great there. Definitely needs to improve on the efficiency side. And DeJounte Murray, only 13 points as well with 7 rebounds. Also needs to improve on the efficiency side. 5 of 15 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3. Not very good numbers coming in from those two guards. And the only real highlight for them on offense was Jalen Johnson, who ended the game with 19 points and 12 rebounds. And he shot 9 of 18 from the field, so 90%, not 50%, not too bad, but he missed every single three-pointer he attempted. So the Hawks need to be better, but again, I don't really see the Hawks doing much this year as they have done previous years where they've made it to the playoffs, won a couple of games, and won a couple of series as well. But I don't see them doing that much because they recently lost to the Hornets, and it doesn't really look like they are that same team again. Brandon Miller ended the game with 26 points. Trey Mann ended the game with 21 points. And Nick Richards ended the game with 12 points. Grant Williams ended the game with 15 and 10. So ever since he's been on the team, the Hornets have been winning a lot more games. So maybe he's the real reason why the Charlotte Hornets are on this winning streak. But regardless, not really much to say about this game. So moving on down the list of the games that went down, the 76ers played against the Miami Heat, and the Sixers lost against the Heat. The Heat scored 109 points compared to the Sixers 104. And once again, there was no Jimmy Butler in the lineup, and the Heat were still able to hang on and win. Bam Adebayo, 23 points, 13 rebounds. Tyler Hero, 23 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. Duncan Robinson, 20 points, 4 assists, and that was all that the Miami Heat needed on the offensive side of the ball. Everybody else was a little bit mediocre, but again, the 76ers, they are not as good of a team without Embiid in their starting lineup, especially at home. And so far, it doesn't really look like that the 76ers are responding as well as I hoped they would respond with Joel Embiid out of the starting lineup. And with that in mind, Tyrese Maxey, he did all that he could. He scored 30 points in this game, 12 of 23 from the field. Buddy Hield also did all he could, 22 points, 8 for 15, 5 of 11 from 3. Paul Reed ended the game with 18 points, 7 for 12 from the field. And even though they did all they could, and Buddy Hield played 44 minutes in this game, and also was able to notch 10 assists as well as the 22 points, obviously, this team is just, I don't think they're going to be a great team at all going after the All-Star break. Like, I think they're done. I think they should just deactivate Joel Embiid for the rest of the season, and they should just get ready for the next year to try and win. Because at this rate, it doesn't look like they really have the pieces that, in order to keep their spot in the Eastern Conference alive for Joel Embiid for when he returns. Right now, they're the fifth seed, and it looks like the Pacers are going to quickly overcome them after the All-Star break. The Heat and the Magic easily have what it takes to overcome them, and I really don't think that this is the Sixers' year. I think they should blow it up right now. They should stop. And while we're on the subject of the Indiana Pacers recently beat a game against the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, they recently acquired Pascal Siakam from a trade, and he is proving to be a very vital piece to the Pacers and their offense. He ended the game with the most points, 23 points. Tyrese Halliburton ended the game with 21 points along with 12 assists. So he is a phenomenal point guard, great player to watch, fantastic talent. And the rest of the team, obviously, was providing on the offensive side of the ball. Shot 41% from the field as a team. Shot 41% from three, 48% from the field. Isaiah Jackson ended the game with 15 points, 7 of 13. Obi Toppin ended the game with 6 of 9, as well as scoring 15 points. So obviously this Pacers team, again, they won the game, but they only won the game by 2 points. So their defense really needs to be much more improved. Scotty Barnes, 29 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists as he's getting ready to play his first All-Star game ever. Emmanuel Quickley, 14 points. RJ Barrett, 23 points and 9 rebounds. And Jacob Poeltl, again, pardon me if I messed that name up completely, but all of them played really well. Poeltl had 19 points and 11 rebounds, but that was the only offense and the only bright side for the Toronto Raptors. The rest of the team shot 51% from the field, but still it wasn't enough to beat the Pacers. And the Pacers have been they've been mid. I mean, to me at least, I'm not too hot on the Pacers just because their defense is it's really, really bad and it's really unreliable. And because their defense is unreliable, I don't think they have what it takes to make a deep playoff run. That's just me. Next, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They played the Chicago Bulls, and they won by 3. 108-105 was the final score. And Donovan Mitchell ended the game with 30 points. Jarrett Allen ended the game with 13 points and 10 rebounds. Evan Mobley ended the game with 14. Excuse me. Evan Mobley ended the game with 14 points, along with 9 rebounds. Darius Garland ended the game with 12 points. And that was really the only thing that the offense needed. Donovan Mitchell didn't really shoot that well, 8 for 21, but he still had 30 points, so can't really blame him much on this game. Darius Garland shot 4 of 10. The rest of these players also shot relatively efficient. Not a very strong substitution or rotation coming in from Cleveland. Only 3 players were subbed in from the bench, and those players were Isaac Okoro, Georges Niang, and Karis LeVert. Now, as for the Chicago Bulls, DeMar DeRozan played 41 minutes, scored 24 points. Kobe White has been a severely underrated guard this season, 32 points, 4 assists, and 7 rebounds. Andre Drummond had 10 points and 15 rebounds, and that was really the only bright spots on the offensive side of the ball for the Chicago Bulls. But obviously, Chicago Bulls have been a mediocre team, 26 and 29, one of the teams that have done absolutely nothing around the trade deadline for the last 4 years. And it's really, I don't know where this team expects to go. But on one team that I expect to go really far is the Sacramento Kings, who have just recently beat the Denver Nuggets at the Denver Nuggets home. De'Aaron Fox ended the game with 30 points, 8 assists, and 8 rebounds. Domantas Sabonis ended the game with 20 points, as well as 13 rebounds. And Harrison Barnes ended the game with 20 points. And that was the only offense that the Sacramento Kings needed in order to pull off this win. Nikola Jokic had one of his bad offensive nights, scoring only 15 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds. Michael Porter Jr. had only 19 points. Aaron Gordon led the scoring in 25 and led in the rebounding as well with 15. And it just wasn't enough to beat the Sacramento Kings. So obviously, Jokic had a pretty bad game in this one. So assuming that he has his usual performances in the postseason, his great games that he usually has, he's going to be fine. The Nuggets are going to be fine. And a team that's not going to be fine, the Washington Wizards. Now, the Wizards recently lost to the Pelicans. Jordan Poole had 19 points, so he was better in this outing than he was in normal outings. We had a random 40-point game come in from Denny Avdija, 43 points, 15 rebounds. Tyus Jones ended the game with 14 points, 15 assists. And Marvin Bagley ended the game with 14 points and 10 rebounds. Wasn't enough, however, to beat the Pelicans. Zion Williamson ended the game with 36 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. Brandon Ingram with 18, 8, and 3. CJ McCollum also ended the game with 26, 6, and 3. So, obviously, the offense has been great for the Pelicans, but the defense has not been that great for the Pelicans, given how I talked about them in a previous segment when they went up against the Lakers. Their paint defense was extremely weak, and so far their paint defense doesn't look like it's getting better in this game whatsoever. And the last game that we have on this list, because we are running out of time, is the Phoenix Suns going up against the Detroit Pistons. And I mentioned in the previous segment how Bradley Beal only played 5 minutes in the last game. Well, Devin Booker only played 5 minutes in this game as he got ejected with only 7 points. So it was up to Kevin Durant and the rest of the team to be able to pull this victory out, which they did, and they won in a blowout, winning by 16 points. Kevin Durant scored 25, 6, and 6. And Eric Gordon ended the game with 13. Jusuf Nurkic ended the game with 10 and 13 as well. And Saban Lee ended the game with 16 points. And that's all the games so far, all the important games that happened. And we wait as we go into All-Star break. But before we go into that, we have a fourth segment where I'm going to just basically talk about the last day before All-Star Weekend and some of the games that are going to happen later tonight, as well as give my opinions on some of the teams and their spots going into All-Star break. So I will be right back after the short break.